Final Fantasy XV. It is not a perfect game, not even close, but it is perfect for me. I first played Final Fantasy XV when I was in my mid-30s, so there is no nostalgia, or at least childhood nostalgia, attached to this game. Yet somehow it has wormed its way into my core being. This very imperfect game has become one of the touchstones that I think about when it comes to video games in general as I've gotten older. And that it is basically a perfect game for where no one goes, in both a literal and figurative sense. You see, this game is, in the end, chiefly about friendship. And not in the tired JRPG way that the answer to killing the big boss at the end of the game is essentially always the power of friendship overcomes all evil. No, this game is about real, believable friendship, blossoming, bending, and breaking. And it broke my heart. I had a best friend when I was the age that you have them. Perhaps it is because I'm a guy, but I'm convinced that there's really only one age where you can have an actual best friend. As we grow through life, there are too many distractions, and eventually the idea of maintaining friendships is, well, to me, almost scary, and certainly something I do not have time for. But I definitely had a best friend at that special, less sapient, stupider time in my life when I was very young and did not quite get how things worked, and did not quite get being around people. It's important to note that that special, less sapient time is largely the entire focus of this channel. I believe it is largely when the canvas of the rest of our life is woven. Outside my wife, who is so much more, I don't have a best friend now. And I would even say that of the people who I call friends, I do not treat them well. I do not call them. I sometimes don't even respond to emails, and it hurts me a bit to know that that is who I am. But in that rarefied time that you needed a best friend, that special time when you're lonely and feeling scared, that time when you close the blinds in your bedroom window every night because if the aliens can't see you, they won't be able to abduct you. This friend was with me through all those terrors, through the imagined monsters that plagued me in the night. As I grew, it stayed with me, the same, static. In the end, it has stayed with me longer than any other thing in the first 23 years of my life. I am talking about my clock radio. This beast stands tall today after 30 plus years of use, dozens of moves, countless hours of playtime, and some weirder maladies common amongst inanimate objects we carry with us everywhere throughout life. This clock radio was the first thing that I relied on for distraction. Distraction from the fear I felt going to sleep every night. Distraction from the boredom I felt when I couldn't fall asleep. All the music, all the AM radio talk shows, all the classic rock. God, so much classic rock. All the classical, and every so often a little bit of that house. I don't think there was anything prior to my clock radio that I relied on so heavily to distract me through the mundane things that we all experience. This is a cold take, but it is interesting how much human culture throughout the ages exists to distract. We are bored apes, and our entire society is built around distracting our boredom. It is hard not to see this in today's world where we're all just... I'll save you the rant, but an interesting note on the moment when I was writing this. I am sitting in a Newfie pub in East Toronto, plugged into a Final Fantasy VI piano compilation, while nursing a Rickard's Red beer, a favorite one of mine in my teens before I had taste. And as I wrote that paragraph, I stopped. I sipped, and I looked around the dim warmth and admired the mahogany trim, silently judged the clientele, and then started reading the single-page menu of pub food that I already decided I was not interested in. I read the write-up of Newfie Poutine, a normal poutine with Quebec curds, but with Thanksgiving stuffing and gravy added. And then I started rereading the menu again, and you get the idea. Distraction. It is not hard to see how desperate we are to be distracted. I'm not here to make a list of grievances about kids these days, because the point I'm making is more about our collective need through our entire history to find ways to fill the time between the silence when we meet each other. Dance. Somehow you and me know how to dance, reads a lyric, an important one to me, from Chris Malinchuk, a song called Tree. You should all listen to it right now. Those words say more about connection, about love, than I ever could, no matter how many words these scripts number by the time I'm finished. I believe that the ultimate connection between people, between us and our world, us and the other beings on this planet, ultimately comes down to this dance. This lyric in particular visualizes unspoken, unexpected, unknowable connection, and I know that it is supposed to be about love between two people, but I think it is such a powerful sentiment, something I have always felt so deep, that it speaks to so much more. Isn't it rather special when you come to a video game and you seem to know it? You just get it. Something about the lore, the visuals, the music, the gameplay just speaks to you. This is what irrational fandom is, and it's rampant in the video game world. Because for those who love them, video games can affect us in ways that are irrationally deep. I, for instance, love Final Fantasy games. Even the ones people hate, I love. Even the ones I hate, I love. There's a reason for that. Somehow, me and Final Fantasy know how to dance. In an ironic twist, Final Fantasy is simultaneously my favorite series of video games, and one that, in my experience, doesn't always sing when revisited. Perhaps, in some cases, I've lost the ability to enjoy them the same way I did when I was a younger person. And there are a few things more heartbreaking than that. Reconnecting with my first best friend recently, I would hit the sleep button and see the familiar 59-minute countdown pop on the screen. It reminded me of the countless nights I spent alone with that workhorse of a no moving parts machine. Imagine the world we live in now, but instead of the planned obsolescence of Apple and Samsung, we had companies that were willing to make the world a better place and then die because their products were too good to need to be replaced. I've heard this idea from the boys at Watch Out for Fireballs before. Sometimes it's better to let something die than to continue to resuscitate it over and over again. And while Ed Harris would disagree in one of the greatest moments in film history, I think that when it comes to video games, it is actually good advice.
God damn it, breathe!
You see, I've loved Final Fantasy since number 6, and I can't really undersell how much I loved it. This game's opening alone can bring me to tears in seconds. That beautiful Terra's theme by Uematsu, and the lumbering Magitech armor clamoring through the snowy field on the way to Narsh. But I never owned a Super Nintendo. The Genesis was cheaper and my parents didn't have a lot of money, so that's all I got. Because I never owned one, I always looked on or read on via GamePro or EGM, green with envy at the cornucopia of awesomeness in the RPG scene that Nintendo kids enjoyed. It was only a few short years earlier, when we already had a Genesis, that I learned video games were actually my jam. It was Shining Force 2. Please go watch Grandma's Basement if you're interested in knowing that story. And now here I was with what became my 3 best and favorite video games of all time: Shining Force 2, Phantasy Star 4, and Landstalker. And nothing else to play. And by the way, Landstalker and Alundra videos coming next season, 100%. They are 2 of my favorite games. There I was, with nothing to distract me, because I already milked every single bit of enjoyment out of those 3, and the SNES kids were out there playing Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy IV, Final Fantasy VI, or 2 and 3 back in the day, and dozens of other great games: Illusion of Gaia, Super Mario RPG. It's the list. The Super Nintendo was the king of RPGs in the 90s. I resorted to some pretty degenerate means to play these games as well, from renting the system at a Blockbuster for 2.5 days with every cent I had earned from my allowance and paper route, to trading systems for a weekend with some guy named Roberto who had 2 big beautiful Rottweilers, I remember. Unfortunately, Roberto called me later that day after we had exchanged. It couldn't have been more than an hour, and he said he wanted his SNES back as soon as possible. I still really can't believe the gall of this kid, but I acquiesced. I got to see his beautiful dogs again, and we re-exchanged later. I still love Rottweilers. Just ask Lemon.
Welcome to Lore with Lemon. I'm Lemon, and these mystery boxes in Chrono Trigger have even more secrets than we previously uncovered. Did you know that?
If I were to rank distractions, then for a very long period of my life, there was no better distraction than Final Fantasy VI. My clock radio stuck with me through thick and thin, but I really wanted to play that game. I've thought at length as to why this is. Why is this game from 1994 so timeless to me? And even at the time before it was timeless, why was it so important to me? If you ask the Final Fantasy fandom, then 6 is generally considered the best one by the top-tier gatekeepers, sarcasm intended. I would be among them, self-deprecating comment intended. As I've aged, there's another Final Fantasy that I think clearly wins out in terms of quote best, but I can and will always respect those who pick number 6. But why do I like it so much? Why did it affect me in such a way? The answer is simple. The game was kept from me. Just like pumpkin spice lattes and how they're only available at certain times in the year. I have tried desperately to play this game over and over again, more than a dozen times, only to be thwarted by either a Roberto or a rental due date or a computer imploding due to all the viruses contracted by failed attempts at emulation. So it was kept from me, so it became more important. But I think most importantly, the reason why this game means so much to me is I've only ever beaten it one time. Everyone has heard of the Marshmallow Test. You put a kid in a room with a marshmallow and tell them they're free to eat it, but if they wait, they can have 2 instead of 1. Some kids will wait and get 2, others will just eat 1 right away. This is considered a way to gauge someone's ability to deny or delay gratification, and if they succeed in waiting, they have, quote, passed the Marshmallow Test. I'm not sure if there is any scientific papers on the fact that maybe some kids just want 1 marshmallow and decide that it's pointless to wait for something you don't want. But I would think that would be quite interesting. To get in the mind of a kid can sometimes open doors in our old stodgy adult brains. Regardless, when it comes to video games, in the 90s, I was in a constant state of Marshmallow Test, due to the fact that I did not have a Super Nintendo. I recently read a post on Reddit about how the person writing it misses the feeling of playing games when they were a kid. Not necessarily the games themselves, but the mindset we all had in the 90s when we were not so plugged in as we are now. To have the ability as an adult to focus on a video game the way you could as a kid is something we've all dreamt about. Unlimited time, no obligations, no bedtime, no need to exercise, no dogs to walk, no job to maintain, free food, room and board. It was bliss. I've thought about this too, but I think that yearning for a life like this sounds more like a prison than a dream. In fact, I would argue that if this is how you were able to live, you'd essentially stop making new memories to fondly look back on. If you could just be as you were as a kid, then you would not realize how great it was to be a kid. I think this nostalgic yearning exists precisely because it is unobtainable. I personally live a very hedonistic lifestyle. I drink heavily, I do as many drugs as I can as much as I'm able, I eat deeply and richly, but I also eat very healthy and hold down a demanding white-collar job. The equation doesn't work without both sides adding up. If you go all hedonist, then you die pretty quickly. If you go all straight and narrow, then you may as well be dead. Bright lights cast dark shadows. If I was able to pass the Marshmallow Test for the remasters of Final Fantasy X and XII, then I could say with strong certainty that they would be amongst my favorite games, instead of unfortunately being relegated to merely good, or maybe even middling. Now I know what you're thinking. 10 and 12? Is he serious? These are very celebrated games. I will say I loved 10 when it came out. I remember slipping deeply into its world from the moment Titus's city is ripped apart at the start. It really stuck with me because even in my late teens when it came out, I still considered myself barely sentient. A child. The wonder that it engendered was perhaps unequaled. It was a masterstroke of experience engineering on Square's part to have the player stand-in character be as dumb and blind to everything as the player themselves are. Rather than a silent protagonist, they created instead a baby protagonist. It worked. It worked really well. When they remastered it about a decade later, I bought the special edition that came in the big picture book style box, and I gobbled the hell out of it when it arrived. I was so looking forward to the exquisite battle system, the best or second best in the series depending on the day. The goofy characters, the calm lands, that special high five at the end. But I barely got to the Mihen Highway before the cracks started to show. What I loved so much as a teen was not hitting as hard. The characters were falling flat, the game's extremely linear nature was more obvious, the game being essentially a straight line from start to finish. I know that video games are all about abstractions, and that could essentially describe almost all games. But there was something wrong with my mood or immersion upon revisiting Final Fantasy X. It seemed cloying. It had at one point been one of my favorite games. Upon revisit, the pitch-perfect battle system and the incredibly powerful ending keep it in the conversation, but nowhere near the top. 12 had a similar arc. I forgave the massively multiplayer online-based combat system, which is not good, because I loved gambits. I loved a good if-then problem to solve. And I also had my socks blown off at the mere concept of the Ogre Yensa Sansi. I bought the remaster same as 10 and was eagerly anticipating gobbling it up. But 12 is an objectively worse game than 10, so the experience was actually worse. Gambits are now very common in video games, and I'd lost the joy I had crafting them as a kid. And the MMO-style combat is the nadir of combat engineering in video games. But what hit home was when I got to the sand sea again, and I felt empty. I had such a glorious idea of it in my memory, about how it made me feel. It was a sea of sand. Are you kidding me? This blew my mind as a child, and I loved it. But the reality could not live up to the memory I had bolstered for so long. I made it to the sand sea, and that's when I quit. The desperation involved in trying to relive the past is part of the problem here, and it is my problem. I wish and want so much to be able to love these games the way I did when I was young. In other games, I still have that love. I still feel it, the mood, the atmosphere, the indescribable feeling of where no one goes. But this isn't universal. Some games impress you, while others imprint on you. Final Fantasy X and XII would have, to me, been better served living high on the hog in my memory. I played the hell out of them when they were released, and I loved them when they were released. I should have let it die then. Forcing something into the annals of memory is not a violence. Denying yourself free access at all times is not a punishment. Being denied something, or denying yourself, means that you can appreciate it more. Its legend will grow. And there is nothing more special than that. But every so often, a game sneaks in between the silence and emerges unbowed. Final Fantasy VI is one of those titles for me. The reason it fares so much better than its 16-bit cohorts, and beats most of the more advanced games as well, comes down to the fact that I was denied this game so much in my youth. Every single moment of it occupies a sacred grove in my mind. Through system rentals, exchanging systems only to have them ripped from my grasp, to sleepovers, to emulation attempts, I clamored for a scant few minutes playing the game. I learned to savor this title like nothing before. The Where No One Goes aura is strong with this title too. If this game was less popular and less documented, then I would have a ball writing about the heartbreaking scene between Go and his father. I still tear up at how excited, shy, and scared he is in his ill-fitting suit just to say hi to his dad, and the waterworks flow when he is rejected again. What's important to note in this scene is that Gao keeps on going after, and his friends stand with him. This level of adult storytelling was something else in 1994, and it remains rare and brave today. Most video games would not have had the balls to allow realistic, thought-provoking bad endings for their characters. And Final Fantasy VI deserves all the credit in the world for doing something better in 1994 than 99% of games do today. Beyond this is the fact that Terra, the main character by many accounts of the game, refuses to rejoin the group in the World of Ruin because she has decided that her life is better spent taking care of the orphans who have been left alone in the ravaged world of Ruin. I know you can eventually re-recruit her, but in the time before the internet, many kids in 1994 were exposed to the idea that a hero can walk away. A hero can let their quest die when they are faced with something that is more important to them. As I write this, I'm struck by how deep this game actually is in my memory. I would argue that no Final Fantasy and few games have risen to this level in the 30 years since it was released. I saw a Distant Worlds Final Fantasy concert in the late aughts with my wife. Uematsu himself was in the audience and joined to play the keyboard for Dark World, the main theme from the World of Ruin, and it might be the highlight of my video game life. I know this game so well that I can recite entire scenes decades later, but I never won the game on its original hardware, the Super Nintendo. I had to wait for the re-release on the PlayStation just a few scant years later, where I did a 100% playthrough, and then finally, after around a decade of trying, I saw Kefka in all his arcane glory, and I listened to the single most epic final boss theme in the history of video games, Dancing Mad. I beat the game, and I have not revisited it, not in the 15 or so years since I've beat it last. After being marshmallowed over and over again as a kid, I chose to marshmallow myself in my barely sapient teen years. I knew when to let it die, or better, I knew when to let it flourish in my memory. As I've gotten older, wiser, and lost some of the heavenly spark of youth, I've realized that what I'd call my favorite game series, Final Fantasy, is actually just 3 really good games. And the rest are good. They're good. And I still stand by my statement earlier that I love them. 10 and 12 too. I still love those games, but it's an irrational love. But it is my contention that the Final Fantasy series has only 3 great games in its 16 title and countless spin-off run. Those are Final Fantasy VI, Final Fantasy VII, and the subject of this video, and the perfect metaphor for this channel, Final Fantasy XV. Yes, that's right. The game that almost broke the company. The game that took more than a decade to be released. The game with one of the most checkered production histories in the industry. The game that started as a spin-off to Final Fantasy XIII. The game that one famous Square developer for a brief period wanted to make into a musical. The game that was so unforgivably and so gloriously unfinished upon release that it required countless pieces of ancillary content to begin to understand the plot. There are no pieces of media that embody Where No One Goes more literally and conceptually than Final Fantasy XV. You see, letting things flourish in our memory distorts them. The blanks are filled, the ideas are expanded, the experiences are enhanced. Either through consciously deciding to let them flourish, or having that something kept out of arm's reach, our minds blossom, and that something can imprint. What's so remarkable about Final Fantasy XV is that through its unfinished existence, its chopped and screwed development, its fragmented world, its fragmented plot, the game naturally distorts itself, just as something you love gets distorted in your memory. I've never played a game that teases you the way it does. Does it do it well? Does it do it honestly? Was this the actual intention of the developers? No, it doesn't, and no, I don't think so. It's sloppy. It teases you through incompetence as much as through omission. It is as if the spell this game casts over you is only strengthened by its inadequacies. The game begins with you, Noctis Lucius Calum, Light of the Night Sky in Latin, which is beautifully appropriate. The last of the royal line of Lucius. Your kingdom is losing a war against the Niflheim Empire. The magic that your dad alone wields is empowering the thousands of people in your army, but the Empire's technological prowess is just too much. Your side, now retreated back to the beautiful city of Insomnia, is going to lose. You, as the little boy of the king, are being married off to Luna Freya Nox Fleuret, the world's oracle, which is to say the most important person in the world, as she is granted by the gods, who are actually real in this game, the ability to heal people of the scourge plaguing the land by taking the sickness into herself. She is also part of the royal line in a puppet state of the Niflheim Empire. The marriage is supposed to be a symbol of the peace treaty that is about to be signed between Niflheim and Lucius. All our boy Noct has to do is go on a road trip with his friends to Altissia, the only true neutral country in this world-spanning war, for the wedding.
Then after that, we hop a boat, and before you know it, lover boy's hitched.
Wait for car repairs, then wedding bells in the air. Got it.
Lots of build-up, right? World-spanning conflicts, intrigue, battles, magic, kingdoms, empires. But then this happens.
I think we can forget about hitching our way there. Thought people were friendly outside the city.
You can only go so far on the kindness of strangers.
You're just gonna have to push her all the way.
I've already pushed myself to the brink of death.
Get up. Come on, car isn't gonna move itself.
Sheesh. I thought the car was supposed to move us.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Can it? Ready, steady.
Push! Is it just me? Or was it supposed to be way closer?
I assure you, the map is correct.
The map said Hammerhead was right there.
Literally next door.
Looks that way. On a map of the world.
The world's a big old place.
Filled with wonders.
Tell that to my legs.
You guys even pushing?
Hard as I can.
With everything I've got.
We'll be there in no time.
Immediately, the game introduced you to the entire source book of lore, but immediately pulls you out of all that and does this astonishingly brave move of focusing in on what the game truly ends up being about. Your friends, the Chocobros. You have Gladio, your bodyguard and trainer growing up, who grudgingly became a close friend. He will tell you to get your fucking act together if you slip.
What the hell is wrong with you?
What?
We're not stopping in Tenebrae. You need to grow up and get over it.
I am over it. I'm here, aren't I?
Maybe when you're not too busy moping, you can look around and give a shit about someone worse off than you.
Then there is Ignis, your aide-de-camp growing up.
That's it!
What's up, Iggy?
I've come up with a new recipe.
Can't wait to try it.
Whose dedication to you hinges both on duty and decorum. He's a miracle worker in the kitchen, too. Or, rather, the camp, with a gas stove. And then there's Prompto, who is simply your friend, your partner in crime, your best friend.
Knocked!
Get out of here! You okay?
We are now.
Just a cool guy to hang out with who always knows your best side as he documents the entire journey through photography.
I swear half your photos are selfies.
Hashtag sorry not sorry.
How did Square do it? I love every single one of these characters. It's crazy. So many games have characters in them that are or become annoying. You might like them for a bit, but eventually their stereotypical nature just, starts grating and you start finding them annoying.
Sometimes I wonder if we'll ever sit inside that beautiful car again.
Sitting most of the day was pretty nice.
Napping was even better.
This is most video game characters. I actually don't think video games are very good at character work, but I digress. For instance, Prompto, who is coded clearly as the annoying best friend. Ignis is coded as the stoic nerd, and Gladio, of course, is coded as the beefy bro.
Good hustle out there.
Yeah, I know. I'm awesome.
All of these are tropes, and in lesser hands would have become grating and annoying and stupid very quickly, but somehow Final Fantasy XV really pulled it off. Because and I would argue 100% of the people who played and reviewed this game, rate the relationships between the Chocobros as the single best highlight of the game.
My ass is killing me.
I think I forgot how to walk.
Focusing on this simple, universal idea of friendship, instead of the world-spanning save the world plot, was a brave move, a bold move, and worthy of a bravo. The game, of course, does end up being about saving the world, but because the characters are center stage, it seems only hesitantly about it. Noct and crew don't want to be doing this. They are forced into it by the powers beyond their control.
I hope everyone's okay.
A lot of good hoping's gonna do.
You mustn't lose faith.
Really? Can faith stop a fleet of Imperial dreadnoughts?
Just give it a rest.
My old man had plenty of faith.
By the third chapter, your father has been assassinated, the Empire has sacked Insomnia, and there are refugees fleeing all across the beautiful, open world that you were exploring at your leisure just moments before. And realistically, you have no idea what's going on. Final Fantasy XV is a game without an omniscient narrator. You learn about your father being killed in the paper.
Where's Specs?
Should be back any minute now.
What's that look for?
It's in all the papers.
What is?
Insomnia Falls.
Moreover, in the wake of the news of King Regis's death, we've now received word that Crown Prince Noctis and the Oracle Lunafreya have also been pronounced dead.
Keep it on.
Don't bother!
And you race back to your city only to see smoke on the carefully obscured horizon. You desperately try and call anyone from your old life to try and find out what happened.
Cor?
So, you made it.
The hell's going on?
Where are you?
Outside the city? With no way back in.
Makes sense.
Makes sense? Are you serious? What about any of this makes sense? The news just told me I'm dead, along with my father and Luna.
Listen, I'm heading out to Hammerhead. About the king. It's true. If you're looking for the whole truth, you know where to find me. Get moving.
Noctis feels and ludically plays in the game the same way you do. The player would feel and act in a real disaster. Desperately refreshing the news on your phone, trying to find out more, only to be met with a dreaded direct-to-voicemail message.
And the king.
The thing is, though, the reason the game is like this is because of the fact that the game went through development hell for 10 years. The scope vastly expanded and then contracted. The director changed back, and changed again. The plot settled, then ripped apart, then changed again. The developer had to change the assets, the script, the plots, the graphics thousands of times, and eventually entire parts of the game were hived off into DLC, only to be released after the game was released. A movie was released along with the game, called Kingsglaive, and there was an anime series released only in Japanese on YouTube. All of these are required to actually understand the game, and they were not in the game. If the director and developer had unlimited time, I'm sure they would have made all parts playable, all things explained, all plot devices spoon-fed to you like a baby. But they didn't. And it is beautiful for it. I've often thought that a fully realized Final Fantasy XV would be the best game in the series, and I stand by that. But what we got, the actual Final Fantasy XV that was released, I think means more to me than even the best Final Fantasy could ever mean to me.
Take a look at this.
What about it?
It's because of its flaws, its excised content, its sloppiness, its silliness, and yes, the Chocobros that I love it so much.
Never seen a geyser before.
Then let's go see.
It's clear that Final Fantasy XV has the Where No One Goes vibe down to a T, but something that is perhaps even more important and adds so much more to this game is the fact that it is full of places that literally embody the words Where No One Goes.
What was this?
New ride we borrowed from the Nifs. This will get us in close.
Serious? Here's...
Take, for example, Niflheim. You enter the continent in the latter half of the game after a catastrophe hit in Altissia, a fight bigger and more spectacular than anything in the series before or since happened. Main characters died, Ignis was blinded in the chaos, trying to save you, and now needs an attendant to walk around and do basic things like eat and go about his life.
Though it may take a bit. You're hurt. Ah, small sacrifice in the greater battle. And Luna? She has passed.
You experience none of this in the game. It is told to you like a horror story, likely because the developers didn't have time to keep it in the game. But it is so much better for it that it's not there. You're simply left broken, like Ignis, enfeebled. On top of this, your previous freedom and exploratory abilities are revoked. You are literally on tracks. Train tracks, to be precise. The train stops and you're in this whole new world that you can see but cannot touch. I remember when I first played this game in 2016 yearning, somewhat desperately, to explore the power fantasy that most video games prime you for. But it is out of reach. You can see the society of this evil empire seemingly miles below, and it doesn't seem at all bad. Almost like your country. Almost designed with you and your car in mind. Like it's asking you for you to come down and have another open world party. Peeking behind the curtain, you can see that they wanted to do more with this. They wanted to make this region more akin to the first part of the game, but they couldn't. A ruined production schedule and questionable leadership decisions kept this game in development hell for a decade. By this point in the game, you can see that they really wanted to do more, but were, importantly, and thankfully, restrained. In being forced to say less while showing more, the game sings. It creates fertile ground in the imaginations of players to plant their own seeds. There are so many other things in this game that exemplify the concept of Where No One Goes. There could be something beautiful there. There could be more of the game there. There could be an explanation for that spoon-fed to you. There could be more stories. There could be more experiences. There's so much that this game could have been. And there it is. The word could. I think I've accidentally stumbled onto the real distilled inspiration behind what I'm trying to do here with Where No One Goes. Video games, more than movies, more than music, offer us doctoral levels of understanding of the word could. I want to explore what could have been more than what was. I'm thinking back to one of my first videos, Alone But Seen, where I imagined the lore behind the oddly shaped jar in Phantasy Star 4. A certain oddly shaped jar in a certain classic video game I realized was actually far more important to this channel than the game that made me love games. So, that video is TK for now, while I explore the secrets of Phantasy Star 4's oddly shaped jar. I wanted to know more about what this could be, what this could mean. I was very upset at the lack of answers I found while delving into it. But that feeling, the idea of what could be, is one I have forever cherished. It's one of my only memories I still retain from that early in my life, and it was the inspiration for me to start this channel. And it boils down to the word could, what could have been. As one whose best friend as a child was his clock radio, perhaps as a 40-something-year-old, I'm starting to take to heart all those articles I see that say the secret to longevity is the connections you maintain. I'm a married man with a white-collar job, high-functioning alcoholism, 3 dogs, a partner who is my favorite person in the world. But compartmentalized from that is the idea of this channel and my video game hobby. I am so disconnected from the video game world, it is not part of my normal life. I may as well still be gleefully listening to classic rock and classical music in equal measure to stay up and outlast the aliens that were certainly going to abduct me the moment I fell asleep. I may as well be lost alone in a sea of indifference without any cohorts, like how I felt for most of my childhood. So it is that word could that brought me to create this channel. What could it be like if I brought together a community of people who see the world and video games in much the same way I do? I want to explore that, and that's why I'm here. Like that kid with the clock radio, I don't necessarily want to connect with people, but instead with your ideas and your creative endeavors. Like Final Fantasy XV, I don't necessarily want to have more of the world to explore, or more of the plot explained, but instead I want to let thrive what could have been. Make no mistake, Final Fantasy XV could have been the best game I've ever played. Instead, it wasn't, but I love it so much more than if it were. But I have to wonder, what if? Like Final Fantasy X or 12, what if I never picked up the remasters? What if 15 did everything I wanted it to do? If I got every bit of lore from everything? If that game didn't have an anime, a movie, 4 DLCs, 3 cancelled DLCs, a book, more than half the world inaccessible, and so much more? What could have been? What might have happened if we saw the fully realized Final Fantasy XV? I am unsure if there is anyone out there like me, but I've dreamt about this version of the game. A complete version. But I stopped short of actually wanting it. In today's world, we all get whatever we want whenever we want it. It's not quite post-scarcity. In fact, most of the world still wants for adequate food and clean water. But in our cloistered, white-collar hovel that the most fortunate of us share, we seem to never be denied anything. We see a marshmallow, we eat it, and we're served another one right away. Why I think Final Fantasy XV remained on my mind for almost 10 years is precisely because I was denied its optimal version. If I got to explore the open roads of dusty Cartanica, or the lush mountain jungles of Tenebrae, or the steampunk metal of Niflheim, would I be making a video about the game 8 years later? I think it certainly would be a better game, but I don't think it would have lived rent-free in my head all this time. I can tell you this, I got to explore all of Lead in 2016, but what I remember most about that area is the view of the inaccessible city of Insomnia, smoke billowing from the obscured horizon. When I think of Final Fantasy XV today, I think of what I didn't get to see far more than what I did. That's why, like Final Fantasy VI and how I was forced not to win that game for years, 15 only grew in stature because of its faults and its omissions. Without them, it would just be another standard good game, and we have at least a dozen of those boring-ass good games every year. I'm interested in the mess and what I missed. The game is better because it was worse. It is a legend because of what it could have been, and wasn't. There are so many things in life that are best left alone, best left unsolved, best left as memories. I read 75 Goosebumps books when I was in grade 4. Should I revisit Stay Out of the Basement today as a 40-something-year-old with mild substance abuse issues? Would One Day at Horrorland stand up against the Metamorphosis? I can't help but have these feelings as I make my way through Final Fantasy XV now in 2025. In the weeks it took to write this script, I decided I was going to do another all-out 100% run of the game. I started playing, and then I thought, nah, let's just play it naturalistically. You know, turn off the HUD and let it wash over me as blindly as possible. I vacillated again and again between these two options: blind, naturalistic, or 100%. But what became clear is that the game was not losing its luster the same way Final Fantasy X and XII had for me. When I had Ignis drive the Regalia through that tunnel in southern Duskai, while the Chocobros and I rocked out to the Final Fantasy VII soundtrack, I was struck by what looked like a bit of world to explore. So I asked Ignis to pull over, we jumped out, and I started following what I thought was likely a world boundary. I was delighted when it turned into a rocky pass that ended in something called Doral Caverns. I have no memory of this place. If I thought hard about it, I did remember the name, but the dopamine hit of stumbling upon something that vacated my memory had me buzzing. I was excited. I was hooked on what could be in there, and I was able to explore it. And I didn't. I saw the marshmallow, and I decided not to eat it. I'm still pecking away at my replay, but I decided to leave Doral Caverns as they were. I decided that I didn't need everything, everywhere, all the time to be mine. I decided that there could be better left alone to flourish in my mind. Your father in this game, King Regis, tells you and the Chocobros at the outset of your journey something I've always found powerful and understated.
You place a great burden on those who would bear with you.
You're one to talk.
I ask not that you guide my wayward son, merely that you remain at his side.
Indeed.
And then
Walk tall, my son.
thank you, Regis, I will. I will walk tall, and I will walk away from this video. I am not going to tell you all if I finished the latest playthrough of the game. I won't tell you if I eventually secreted that scrumptious marshmallow away and made it to the fenced-off fishing spot. That's between me and my clock radio. I won't tell you any of it, because I want the idea of what could have been and what could have happened to flourish in your mind. So go, walk tall, and explore. Just come back safe and know that our community of cohorts remain by your side here. I want you all to follow your own path, where no one goes.